All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As people trickle in, they'll just catch wind of the announcements. So before we start, just got a couple announcements for you all. One, one big one, if you need help, if you don't understand, don't just sit and try to get by. Please reach out to me and let me know if you don't understand. I want to help you. I'm here to help you. So please don't sit idly by and try to get by, because I will help you as much as I can. All right. If you want to set up an office hour, I'm here. If you have questions in class about the lecture and you don't feel comfortable speaking up, write it in the chat as a private message to me and I'll answer it to the class. I'm sure you're not the only one with the same question. All right, so that's the first announcement I have. The second announcement is just to be safe. Stay safe, right? Continue taking your precautions. There have been 6 confirmed cases of COVID on campus in the past 2 weeks. All right, so continue to take those precautions. Try to be as safe as possible. As a result of those confirmed cases, in-person classes have been suspended for this week, so I will not be on campus on Friday. All right. Another announcement: Red Hat is having a resume building event next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. I encourage you all to attend. It would be a strong opportunity for you to build your resume and build it appropriately for industry evaluation, so internships and potentially future employment. Also on October 30th in class, we'll be having Red Hat will be giving a open source talk. So what is open source? Why is it important in today's society? And how impactful is it in today's society? So be on the lookout for that. That will be in class. So obviously we will probably cancel the lab. And also in mid-November, starting mid-November, Red Hat, their internship opportunities will open up, and they are motivated to hire Shaw students. So I encourage you to use that resume building event to not only build your resume, but connect with some Red Hat hiring managers. And what they're really looking for are students who are passionate about whatever work you're applying for. So if you're applying for an internship in artificial intelligence, how enthusiastic are you about artificial intelligence? If you're applying for internships in data science, how enthusiastic are you about data science? So on and so forth. There's a lot of different jobs within technology that doesn't necessarily mean coding. There are a lot of management potential. There's data analytics, data science, all of those different areas. IoT, Internet of Things. So if you like working with embedded devices, if you like doing that, reach out to me because my research is in IoT. And they like students who show initiative outside of class. So are you taking on any projects outside of class? Are you just showing initiative that you do enjoy technology and want to pursue a career in it? So that's what they're looking for. And lastly, if you showed interest in ACM, I sent you a link to sign up or at least sign the document. Please sign that document as soon as possible. All right. If you are interested in ACM, which ACM will connect you not only to Red Hat trainings, but we're planning on having a lot of different other industry partners coming in, and that ACM will serve as where they'll first go to find students, okay? So if you are interested in ACM, reach out to me and let me know. Any questions about my announcements? And does anybody know a student by the name of KD? They've connected to class for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I have no idea who they are.
You said what their name is?
KD Denham?
Yeah, I got him. He right here by me.
Who is that?
His name, yeah, Katie. I don't know why he's not in class though, but he right here by me.
What's his name?
Keyshawn Denham.
Yeah, he's not on my roster, so technically I can't let him in, but I mean, he can listen in if he wants. You said what?
Huh? You got his class?
All right, well, I mean, he can listen in, but he's not technically in this class. All right. All right, so we'll just continue with the lecture. If you have any questions, please speak up or type it in the chat. Again, the chat is available to you all. And I do have it up throughout the duration of class, so I'm seeing your messages. All right. So lecture 15, code organization, method overloading, and variable scope. So we talked about it last class. Why do we do code organization? Why are methods important for this? Well, again, you don't want to put all your code inside your main method, right? Your main method will get overly complex or just long, right? So methods help to organize your code based on similar objectives. For example, if I want to compute the max from a list of numbers, right? Or if I want to find the max from a list of numbers, put that in a method. If I want to compute the average of a list of numbers, put that in a method. Right? It helps to organize your code. You can keep it inside your main method, but it just makes it more organized to put it inside a method of its own. So if you look at this example, what is this doing? So first of all, I'm creating an array of numbers or a list of numbers. We'll talk about arrays next week. Okay? I'm creating that list of numbers, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 6. It's just a list. Next thing I'm doing is creating a variable, max. Its name is max, and setting it equal to the smallest possible number on my system, which is like -2 billion or something like that, or -2 trillion. I don't know what that number is, but it's the smallest number possible. And we do that because we're looking for the max number. So each time a number is greater than that, I want to set it equal to it. This next line, we're looping through that list of numbers or that array of numbers. On this line, I'm creating a temporary variable, and I'm setting it equal to whatever number is at the current index in that list. So if it's index 0, it's going to be 3. If it's index 1, it's going to be 5. Index 2 is 6. Index 3 is 8. And index 4 is 6, right? And that's what temp will equal, either 3, 5, 6, or 8. 3, 5, 6, 8, or 6 again, right? Then I'm checking if that temporary number is greater than my current max, right? Our current max, when we first start this, max is equal to the smallest possible number. So now I'm checking if that temp is greater than that max. If it is, set max equal to temp. And this is how you would find the maximum number in this list. Then lastly, I'm just printing out that max number. And again, this code works. It's inside our main. It works, right? However, what if we have another list and we want to calculate the max from that list as well? We'd have to copy and paste all that code for that new list. Or what if we have a lot of other code inside our main, right? Our main would get very complex and long. So the solution is just to put that code inside a method. So we have all this code that calculates the max. We take that code and we put it inside a method of its own. Public static int max, right? Now it's in a method by itself, and our main right up here is a little bit cleaner. We only have 3 lines of code versus however much we had back here. We had all this code inside our main. If we put that inside a method of its own, now our main looks a little bit cleaner. Okay. All right. All right. Now our main looks a lot cleaner compared to where it was. Any questions about code organization?
Okay, can you repeat that, please?
Which part?
So you said you showed us a slide which was saying that the code will work, but then you said something that I kind of missed you.
So on this slide, right, we have all this code inside our main method. And if I run this, it will get the max of list 1, right?
Yeah.
It gets the max. However, if you look at our main, we have all this code in our main. And it works. But if we want to use this code again to get the max of another list, or let's say, yeah, I get the max here, but on down, I have a lot of other code.
Okay.
Well, instead of having it staying in our main, all I did was move all that code into a method of its own.
Oh, okay. So can it work like maybe if we have different lists, we can just put it in this new code organization over here?
Correct. And
okay.
So right here on this line, we're calling our method right here.
Okay.
On list 1. But if we have another list, and I'll show you an example of this later with actual code. If we have another list, I can call the same method and just pass my new list.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
When we first type that in, that's what we type in.
What do you mean?
Like the codes, them codes right there, that's on this page right here, that's what we type in.
For what?
For assignment. What's that? What are we doing? Methods. This is for the methods, right?
I have to look at the assignment. I don't know exactly if this is what you're doing. I'm sure it's similar to this though.
Okay.
All right. All right, any other questions? All right, let's continue. All right, so with methods, we have something called method overloading. All right, really all you're doing is you can have 2 different methods with the same name, but different parameters. So you look down here, this method right here is what we just did. It gets the max of a list of numbers, right? 1 list. However, we can do the same thing, same name, but let's say I have 2 lists of numbers that I want to compute the max between the 2 of them. Well, I can have the same method, except now I'm taking in 2 formal parameters, which are those 2 lists, and it returns the max of those 2 numbers. Okay? So it's method overloading just means you can have the same name, but different parameters. Okay? Everything else is the same except the parameters. And of course, with those new parameters, how you calculate the max within that method will change. So if we look here, this is what we had previously, right? It's just getting the max of a list of numbers. This is exactly what we did, I think, 2 slides ago, okay? Returns the largest number in a list of numbers. Same thing we just did. All right, so now what I'm going to do is create that new method with 2 lists, and we're getting the max of those 2 lists. So just look at this. I know this is a lot, but if you look up here, from here down to here, is the same thing as what we just had. We have our list 1. We're calling it right here our method max, and it's returning the max of that list 1. And then I create another method down here, and it goes through those two lists, and it gets the max number between those two lists. Okay, so that's what I have right here on the screen. This one does 1 list. This method does 2 lists. But if you notice, the signatures of these methods are exactly the same until you get to the former parameters. The former parameters are different. Okay, and that's what this method is doing. Returns the largest number from 2 lists of numbers. Okay. Set that there for a second so you can look it over. All right. So when I call this up here on this line, right, the program already understands, all right, you only passed 1 parameter. So it knows which method to use. It knows it's going to use that method. Right? It knows this because you only passed 1 parameter. However, if I change this a little bit, so I create 2 lists now, and I call the same method, but with those 2 lists passed, the program knows you're calling the second method with 2 form parameters down here. All right? It knows this just by the parameters that you passed, the actual parameters that you passed. Back here, you only passed 1 parameter, so it knows it's going to use that one. Right here, you passed 2 parameters, so it knows it's going to use that second method. All right? The program knows, based on the parameters that you pass, which method to use, even though they have the same exact name. All right. Are we moving on past method overloading? Any questions? Again, you can send it to me as a private message in the chat, or you can speak up, either one. All right, we're going to continue. All right, variable scope. Pretty much wherever you declare your variable is where you can use it in your program. So for example, if you declare your variable in a class, you can use it inside the entire class, right? If you declare your variable inside a method, you can only use it inside that method. Same thing with a loop. If you declare a variable in a loop, it can only be used inside that loop. Same with an if or switch statement. If you declare a variable inside those statements, it can only be used inside there. All right, so let's go through some examples. So if you look here, public class lecture 15, I have my public static void main, and it has some code in here. I have this public static int max. Again, it gets the max of a list of numbers. I just don't have all the code in here. All right, but you see here, I create this variable int count equals 0 inside my class. It's not inside any of these methods. Therefore, I can use it anywhere inside this class, including these methods. I can use it here, I can use it down here. I can use it anywhere inside this class because I created it as a class method. So I can use it here and here because it's a class variable, okay? All right, method variables can only be used within the method block. So I don't have it up here no more. I have int count right here inside the main method. Since it's created inside these blocks, I can only use it inside the main method. I can't use it anywhere else. And you see it down here, that's not allowed. Can't do that. You'll get an error. Because count was declared inside this main method, I can't use it anywhere outside of the main method. If I declared it inside the class like this, I can do this, all right? But since I've declared it inside the main right here, cannot use that. And that continues. I can use it up here because I created it inside the main, but I cannot use it down here. All right, so similar to that method, if we create a variable inside of a loop, so int temp equals numbers, that should be I. If we create a variable inside a loop, it can only be used inside this loop, right? That int temp can only be used inside the loop. Right? The variable temp can only be used inside the loop it was created. So if I have something like this, same thing as if I said set temp equal to 0 down here, that's not allowed. Can't do it. I would have to declare a new temp and then set it equal to 0. But since I declared temp up here inside this for loop, cannot use it outside of it. And the last thing are if and switch statements. So you see this if statement right here. I create a variable Boolean changed and equals true inside of this if statement. That means I can only use it inside of this if statement. I cannot use it anywhere else inside my program without redeclaring it, right? Only inside the if statement. If I have this changed equals false down here, cannot do that, right? That is not possible. It's outside the scope. And that's what scope of a variable scopes are, where you can use it in your program. Class variables can be used anywhere inside the entire class. It has a scope for the whole class. Method variables, their scopes are only within the method. Loop variables, their scope is only inside the loop. And then if and switch variables, their scope is only inside those if or switch statements. So with that being said, if you want to use a variable inside of a method in the loop and then again inside the method, you would have to create a method variable because you can use it anywhere in your method. All right, let's go over some examples with code. All right, so let's start a project. Over here, new project, Java application. Next, let's call this lecture 15. All right, let's jump in here. Let's talk about code organization first. Let's go back to, let's do something different. Let's compute the average of a list of numbers, okay? So first, let's create a list of numbers. This is called an array, again. List1 equals new int. And let's just add some numbers. All right. So I just create a list of numbers. These are my numbers and my list. Again, we'll talk about arrays next week. So this part, you don't really have to understand what's going on here, but just know this is a list of numbers, okay? All right, let's compute the average. So in order to compute the average, we do need to sum up all these numbers. Sum equals 0. In order to do that, we need to loop through all these numbers. I is less than list1 dot length, I plus plus. Let's create a variable int temp equals list1 at index I. And that just sets temp equal to whatever, as we loop through our list, it sets it equal to whatever number is at that current index. And we just do sum plus equal temp. And that sums up all our numbers. We're adding it into our variable sum. Then lastly, let's compute our average, double average, or let's do list one, AVG equals sum divided by the total number of items within our list, which would be, in this case, is 6. System.out.println list one average plus list one AVG. All right, so this code right here computes the average of a list of numbers. Let's debug this and let's walk it through line by line. So the first line, again, it creates our list. So if I step over, you'll see down here, it created a list one and add all those numbers into our list. The next line creates a variable sum, sets it equal to 0 down here. So sum is equal to 0.0. The next line, we're going to create a loop to loop through our entire list. So that's what we're going to do. Inside of our loop, again, this would have a loop scope, this temp. We create that variable temp and we set it equal to the first number, which is 54. If you look at our list, the first number is indeed 54. All right. And then we add that number into our sum. And we repeat this process until we've done the entire list. And you notice each time temp is changing as we loop through our list. Last one, and then we're done. So now our sum is 155,016. That's our sum from looping through that entire list. We created an average, double list one average equals sum divided by the total number of items in our list, which is 6, and we get our average right here, which is 25,836. Okay? And then we print that out at the end. And so that's what we got. Cool. Our code works, computes the average. But let's say I have another list, list 2. And list 2 has its own set of numbers, right? It has its own set. I'm just putting in random numbers. And then I want to compute the average of list 2. Well, looking at this, I would have to copy and paste this whole thing down here in order to do so, right? And instead of list 1 right here, I would do list 2. Again, I would do list 2 down here and list 2 down here. Let's create a new variable that. Let's change this. All right. So now I'm computing the average for list 2. And you can already see our main method is getting kind of long. It's not really that long. There's only about 40 lines of code. But if you see, we're repeating code in here, and this works, right? It computes the average, but we're repeating a lot of code, and our main method is getting kind of long in the tooth, if you will. So instead of doing all of this, let's take this code, all this right here, and let's put it inside a method, right? Let's create a method for that. So let's go down here, outside of our main, public static, since we want to call it from our main, double compute average. It takes in a list of numbers, and it returns the average of those numbers. So now I can just copy and paste all this down here. Of course, inside of our method, our parameter is changed, so we got to change that. Let's just call this average. And then we just return average. Cool. So now up here, all we got to do, double list one AVG equals, we call our method compute average and pass in list one. Bam. And that's going to get the average of list one. This right here. Compute average of list one. Same thing goes for list two. Double list two AVG equals compute average. And then we pass in list two. And right here, this computes the average of list two, right? So now if you look at our main is a lot clearer, more concise, and we can see what exactly it's doing. And on top of that, I can reuse the same method without typing the code over and over again, without copying and pasting it over and over again. So if we debug this line by line, we go like this. We create our list one, step over. Now I want to step into this method so I can see what's going on. If I just step over, it's going to go to the next line, but I want to step into it. So this button right here, step into, steps into this method. And now our method does as you expect, except we passed in list one. So this formal parameter right here, numbers, actually, it now equals list one in terms of its contents, right? And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just go through this for loop. And we summed up all our numbers, compute the average, return that average, and we come back up here and we set this variable list one average equal to whatever is returned from this method. We print it out. And you see the output is exactly the same as what we had before. And it's going to do the same thing, except now we're passing in list two and printing it out. And it's going to be the same thing, same average. All right, so code organization, again, common objective, which is to compute the average of a list of numbers. I put it in a method. Makes your main method look a lot cleaner. Questions? All right. So let's move on to method overloading. All right. So sticking with this example, we have our method down here. And I'm going to delete list two right now. All right. We have this method down here. It computes the average of a list of numbers. All right. This method down here, again, like I just said, computes the average of a list of numbers. Regardless of whatever list you passed in, it will always compute the average. How about let's create the same method, compute average, but instead of a list of numbers, we're just going to pass it three numbers. We don't want a list, but we still want this option in case we do want to compute the average of a list. So we can overload this method by creating another one, public static double compute average. Now, if I do the same parameters in numbers, I will get an error, right? This method is already defined. So we can't do that. We have to change the formal parameters right here. Like I said, int number one, I want to do three numbers, int number two, int number three, right? Now these two methods have the same objective, which is to compute the average. It's just what our parameters are changes. Instead of a list, we have actual numbers, okay? And so inside our method, to compute the sum or the average of those three numbers is a little bit different. Double sum equals, we just add up all the numbers, number one plus number two plus number three, right? We just added all the numbers together, that's the sum. Our average equals sum divided by three, right? So that's pretty clear. That's how you compute an average. You add up all your numbers, and then you divide it by the number of numbers you have, or the number of items you have, which is three, right? We have three numbers. And then we just return average. And you see that error goes away, even though they have the same exact name. That error goes away because we have different formal parameters. That's method overloading. So we still have this up here. Let's read in 3 numbers from the console and compute the average. Read 3 numbers and compute average. All right, so let's create a scanner. Input equals new scanner, system.in, right? Control Shift I. And then let's say double num1 equals input.next double. Actually, it should be int, true, that's int. Int num2 equals input.next int. And then int num3 equals input.next int, right? We read in 3 numbers from the console. Double num average equals compute average, not a list, but those 3 numbers, num1, num2, num3. Right? And the system, the program knows, up here we call it compute average, it knows we passed in a list, so it's gonna go down here. Right here we compute average, and we passed in 3 numbers, so it's gonna go down here. The program knows which one to use. System.out.println 3 number average is plus numav. All right. Let's walk through this. Debug. We create our list, hop over that, and I'm going to step in to show you that the program knows which one to use. Step into this, and it goes down here to the method, the compute average method with the form parameter of a list of numbers. And it goes through like we expect, like we did before, computes the average and returns the average and prints it out, right, down here. It print out the average like we just did before. All right, now it's down here on this line. It's creating a scanner object, and now it's waiting for my input. Let me type in a number. Bam. It's waiting for my input again. I'm gonna type in another number. And it's waiting for my input one last time. Oops. All right, so now it's down to this line. And again, the program knows which method to go to. So if I step into this, it's going to go to that second method we created down here. And it's going to compute the average and return the average. We're back up here and print it out. You see down here, 3 number averages, 1.8 something E7, which I don't know if that's right, but the program says it's right. All right, any questions? Any questions about method overloading, which again is using the same method name with different formal parameters? All right, there's no questions. The last thing we'll cover today is variable scope. All right, so variable scope, again, it just depends on where you create your variable. So, for example, if I go up here, underneath my class, I create a static variable, static int count equals 0. All right, I got a static int count, and you'll know it's a class variable in NetBeans if it turns green. I can use this count in any method in this class. Count plus plus, I can do it there, I can do it here, and I can do it here, right? I can use it in any method. And since it's a class variable, I can use it. It has scope, within the entire class from here down to here. All right. However, if I do this, int count equals 0, inside my main method, I can use it still inside my main method, right? Because it's inside this scope. However, I can't use it anywhere else in my program unless I declare a new variable here. I can use it here, but I still can't use it down here. So that count has scope within your method. Okay? All right. So now loop scopes, again, this int temp has scope within this loop. So I cannot do temp equals 0 down here, right? That's outside the scope of this for loop, so that's going to give me an error. Now, if I wanted to do something like this, I would delete this right here, and I would declare temp out here. And now I can use it anywhere inside my method, including this for loop. But as it was, like this, where temp was created inside the loop, I cannot use it outside of that loop at all. Right? Okay. And the last one, if statement, if temp is greater than 5, I'm just going to create a variable Boolean higher than 5 equals true. Right? I create a variable inside of this if statement, just some random variable. This variable, it can only be used inside this if statement. I cannot use it inside this for loop. Higher than 5 equals false. Can't do that. I'm going to get an error. Can't use it outside the loop. I'm going to get an error. However, I can create it up here, Boolean higher than 5 equals false. And now I can use it anywhere inside this method, including the if statement, including the for loop, and after it. It can be used anywhere in this method. All right. So that's variable scope in a nutshell. Just knowing where you declare a variable is where you can use it. Okay. If you declare it in the class, you can use it in the whole class. If you declare it in the method, you can use it in the whole method. In the loop, just in the loop. If statement, just in the if statement. All right. So that's variable scopes in a nutshell. Questions, comments, or concerns? I will be uploading this lecture to the class website. All right, if there's no questions, comments, or concerns, that'll do it for today. Again, if you signed up for ACM, please sign the document I sent you through Sign Now. It should be in your email, and I've sent you an email. If you need help with anything in this class, if you want additional instruction, please email me, put it in a private chat, whatever. We can set up office hours and we'll work from there. I'm happy to help you however long it takes for this to click in. All right. Well, with that, that'll end class, and I will see you on Friday. Again, Friday will be virtual. All in-person classes have been suspended for this week due to those COVID cases. So Friday will be online, and I will see you then.
Good day.
Did you mark me present?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hey, Tyrone, I need you to sign that document.
All right, Mr. Brown.
All right, take it easy, Doriantis. I said, Tyrone, I need you
You
to
too.
You need me
sign that document.
the document?
Yeah, for ACM.